Hi guys, hope you are all okay. Let's have a look now at Aeschylus and Salamis. We probably won't do much of Salamis, but getting towards the very important Salamis scene at the centre of Aeschylus's Persians. So first thing is the moment you've all been waiting for, a 10-mark question. So the question I would like you to answer is based on page 128, which is all of Atossa's dream and then the portent that follows and then the comment she makes to the chorus. How effectively does Atossa's dream and her response to it characterize Persian society? A 10-mark question, so you've got 15 minutes. Now, write that question down, take a snapshot or record it or whatever, because we're going to move on to the next screen where I'm just going to remind you of some of the key tips on how to do a 10-mark question, techniques, tips. So let's have a look. So what you need to remember to do, and do this now at the start and then go back and have a look at it again. Have you identified 7 key points from the text? Have you provided a short quote to support each point? So you may say that Persians are characterized as being terribly effeminate, but have you shown a short, clear text or quote that proves that from the text and then explained why it does? The next point, have you explained why each quote answers the question? The next thing you need to consider, have you used the specific language from the question? And it's all very well doing general analysis of a passage, but if you're not answering the specifics of the question, you're not going to do very well, even if your general analysis is world class. So the words that we need to see are the effectiveness of the passage in characterizing Persian society. So I want to see the words characterize Persian society, 4, 5 times, maybe more. Obviously synonyms can work, but you want to be very clear that you are answering that question effectively. Other things to consider, are you referencing key terms or values or literary techniques or effects? In some 10 markers, that's obviously a really important thing, especially maybe the more Homeric ones. And with Aeschylus, it could be really important too if it's a more literary question. But here, and again, it's not compulsory to do well, but there would be certainly core values such as sophrosune and Andrea that it might be useful to define and reference. Good, so stop, give yourself 15 timed minutes very carefully and write the 10 marker. Good. Okay, so what I would like you to do now is, with a different coloured pen, is to go back through this list and underline where you've done these things. So have you underlined 7 points? Can you underline 7 short quotes? If you've done 6 or 5 really well developed, that's fine. 7's a kind of a guide. If you're doing a little bit less analysis, then you want to be hitting 7. If you're doing deep analysis, you want to be hitting about 5. So have you explained or analysed why each quote answers the question? Can you underline your justifications? And this is what, obviously you need to do everything that I tell you to, but this is really important. Underline in your work where you have used the specific language of the question. And it should be there 4 or 5 times. If it's not, the chances are you're not answering the question, and you might be able to get there with synonyms and the examiner being kind, but you expose yourself to suffering really, really badly come the final exams. And what I'd like you to do is maybe a different colour or symbol, reference key terms or values. So given that we're looking at the characterization of Persia, in contrast to the Greeks, 3, 4 key bits of terminology that show what a top quality classicist you are. Again, you could do perfectly without specific terminology, but it's often a good sign. Now, the next thing that I would like you to do is to look at the exemplar. So attached to this lesson will be an exemplar, and I'd like you to go through that and do the same kind of thing. Underline the points, underline the quotes, look at where things have been analysed and explained, look at where specific language from the question has been used, and is there reference to key terminology where appropriate. So that should take you another 10 minutes or so. So even though this video lesson won't be quite long, up to this point, if you do it properly, you should have taken about half an hour, maybe a little bit less. Good. So what I would like you to do now is read on to page 129 with Atossa and Athens. So here we get an interesting little interlude where the chorus and Atossa decide that because they cannot possibly interpret the dreams of Atossa effectively, they don't really know what to do next, they decide, well, it's quite logical that we should then do a bit of necromancy and speak to the dead, summon the spirit of Darius. That's quite an extreme response. The Persians cannot survive without a king in command. And consulting the dead is a tricky, complex and dangerous business. And there's some scholarly debate on this as to how barbaric it is. As you'll see in a bit, Edith Hall says, well, actually, the Greeks did have a shrine where they did something similar. But other scholars say, no, this is pretty barbaric and extreme and ridiculous, and really characterizes the Persians as a barbaric and foreign people with an improper approach to religion. So, classic scholarly debate there. Anyway, have a look at page 129, and can you highlight 4 crucial quotes that show the difference between Athenians and Persians? So stop, take 5 minutes, see what you get. So there are all sorts of very important quotes in that exchange between Atossa and the chorus, and the function of it is clearly a kind of celebration of Athens. Atossa knows where Athens is. The chorus must have heard of Athens. They obviously fought the Battle of Marathon against them, then the invasion of 480 and Salamis. Well, they don't know about Salamis, obviously, but they know that the purpose of the invasion was to conquer Athens. So really, this scene is there to celebrate Athenian and Greek identity. It's a chance for the audience to scream and roar the name of Athens, because I think the theatre would have been a fairly wild, exotic and exciting thing. This is not loads of lovely middle-class people sort of drinking half a Chardonnay and then going and watching some obscure cultural play. This is something that everyone takes part in. I think a better idea or a better sense of atmosphere would be much more like a football match than what we think of as kind of modern theatre. So when the Persians say, the chorus say, where is Athens? Then I suspect a lot of the audience would have gone, it's here. It's a real sort of, I think one could argue it's sort of a naked propaganda, a naked expression of Athenian values and ideals. So I think there's a couple of really important things. So perhaps the most important one, perhaps the most important phrase is when Atossa asks, masterless, how do they resist invasion? And the chorus say they are servants to no man. So this is the sort of fundamentals of Athenian identity, isn't it? There is no, they're not slaves, and there is no sort of single figure who dominates them. They are a passionate democracy. The chorus also go on to point out that they use the spear and shield. They say, Atossa says, are they skilled archers? And the chorus say, no, they use the spear and shield. And think about the significance of that in terms of manliness. So those are 2 of the kind of crucial differences: the way they fight and their political systems. Those are sort of core to Greek and Persian identity. So other little differences are there's the reference to the Greek silver mine at Sunion, which is where they use the money to build the triremes. So the Greeks are kind of, and the Athenians especially, are identified with silver, and the Persians identified with gold. So think about Xerxes' gold-plated armor, etc., etc., etc. Good. So moving on, what I would like to do now is have a look at Edith Hall's analysis of Aeschylus's Persians. Now she absolutely loads this with really important sort of intellectual academic arguments, things that we've talked about before, but now you can specifically link them to Edith Hall and other things that we haven't really brought up or focused on. So this is a 10-minute video, but I think by the time you've stopped and taken detailed notes, which I would strongly urge you to do, this sort of 15-20 minutes in, I would argue. So I'll put the link up as part of the assignment, because all you can see here is the word Maslet, which is not helpful. But if you want to go onto Maslet and search, if you just search Edith Hall, Invention of the Barbarian, and then her video on Aeschylus's Persians, you can find it that way. Good. So the final task, if you like, is to have a cup of tea and then have a look at this very impactful scene. So there's been a huge build-up of tension in the play thus far, not as to what's happened to the Persians, but really because the Athenian audience know, because they themselves killed them. But when and how will this information be revealed? And suddenly there is this break of tension when the Persian messenger appears and delivers the news of Salamis. And in the initial part of his speech, again, we get a reinforcement of some key ideas, key values. So have a look at page 130-31. When the messenger comes in, you'll see reference to the size and scale of the Persian army. So see if you can find a couple of quotes that deal with that. Hubris, see if you can find a quote that deals with that. Effeminacy, find a couple of quotes that deals with that. Celebration of Athenian identity and political systems, which arguably kind of wind in together. So stop, spend 5 minutes combing through and see if you can find some quotes or short references to those sort of key ideas in this Persian messenger's initial speech. So page 130 down to 131. Off you go. Well done. So obviously there are a few other things, but just a few examples. So size. Now remember, it's really important that the Persian force is depicted as enormous for a couple of reasons. So first reason, to bring great glory to Athens. To have the Athenians / Greeks defeat this vast force brings great glory to the Greeks. It shows that the gods are on their side, and for the Athenians, it's a justification of democracy and the democratic system. Look, our ideals allowed us to defeat this vast army, many times the size of our own. So size is really important. So when they say, "Oh, cities of wide Asia," that's a kind of reference to the size and scale of the Persian army. We get the fact that their bodies are strewn all over Salamis, so multiple bodies all over the place, and the idea of our country's fleet and army are no more. So again, this sort of huge whole-scale sense of slaughter and complete victory. Now, size is also important because it highlights Xerxes' hubris and excess. So Xerxes in a sense, Xerxes wakes up, according to Aeschylus, and goes, right, everyone invade Greece, off we go, no one stays behind, everyone, just sort of this huge, vast, emotional kind of response in which he demands every man in Asia goes and attacks Greece. So it shows Xerxes' excess, his hubris, and his impetuosity every time there's a reference to the size of the Persian army. Because remember, with 1 million sabres, 1 million men, he is acting on a godly scale rather than a mortal one. In terms of references to effeminacy, you've got, as always, the flower of youth having fallen. You've got the behaviour of the chorus, "Oh, grief and grief again, weep and lament with loud despair." So just the chorus of being, yes, it's sad news, but they're getting a little bit shrill, a little bit hysterical. And this is a classic case for, or situation where it'd be good to see the signs, wouldn't it? Are the chorus rolling around on the floor, screaming and wailing and ripping their clothes in a very barbaric, excessive, exotic performance? Or are they being a little bit more, obviously clearly upset, but are they being more restrained and Greek, and that, you know, we're never going to know, but I suspect they're being truly quite barbaric at this point in terms of excessive emotions and dancing and movement and sobbing and wailing. I think in terms of effeminacy, there's also this idea that the Persians seem to be trying to defeat the Athenian triremes with bows and arrows, you know, that cowardly weapon from afar. And they, you know, obviously they were on ships too, and it's all a bit murky and not very clear, is it, that this is actually a naval battle that's being talked about. So the messenger says, our bows and arrows were no help there, overwhelmed by crashing prows. You know, they didn't want to get up close and personal with the Greek ships. They tried to sink them with bows and arrows, you know, ridiculous and cowardly. In terms of a celebration of Athenian identity, well, we do have reference to the shores of Salamis, but also, more importantly, the messenger saying, Athens, a name of anguish in our memory. So, you know, Athens, remember, this is the court of the largest empire in the world, going, oh, Athens, how awful and terrible they are, how they've hurt us, how they've killed us. And obviously, for the Athenian audience, they're going, yay, you know, a real celebration of Athenian identity. I think the political system is really well highlighted by the messenger's announcement, Xerxes the king lives, and almost instantly Atossa changes. Then the light of hope shines forth like white dawn after the blackest darkness for my house. So just because Xerxes is alive, suddenly things, hey, is not that bad. We've lost 900,999 other men, but Xerxes is still here, so yay. You know, that's not the way things work for Athens. Again, we're seeing the kind of the sort of the nature of tyranny and the importance of the great king as opposed to the political system or the people or the polis. Good, so I'm sure you picked out all of those. Anyway, short video, but much longer lesson. So this should have taken you about an hour and a half. If you've skimped on any of the activities or tasks, then maybe you'll have finished quicker, but don't. You know, it's important that you do things properly. Anyway, that's that. So well done. I will set homework as soon as I can, and I will catch up with you guys next week.